Good morning, my name is Sam, and today we're going to be having another teen book talk. This month we read the book Moxie, not only because it's Women's History Month, but, to spoil ourselves, there was a Netflix movie that came out this month along with it based off the book. I will say, not to sound cliche or anything, the book was much better than the movie. You kind of get more in depth with these characters, you kind of feel more connected. But this book, if you didn't catch the beginning of it when I described it the first time, it's called Moxie by Jennifer Mathieu, not Matthew like I said in the previous video. Well, it's about the character Vivian, and she's dealing with a lot of sexism and unfairness in her school. So he takes a page from her mom's book or zine, which we'll talk about today, and she fights back in a way. Nothing too violent, not protesting much, but she's getting all of these girls to work together. And it's just a nice book altogether. I will not say it's my highest rated book that we've done so far. There are times where you kind of lag in the story, but no book is perfect. So I will give this maybe a 6 out of 10, but it has great values in it along with how to deal with things in school, how to bring a group together. And it talks about how you don't have to be the super strong character to do all of these things. You could be a very plain Jane, which I will say Vivian is. Not to spoil anything, but she's kind of a plain Jane doing this extravagant thing. And so, along with that, I would kind of like to talk about zines, because this book heavily relies on zines and what they kind of mean and do. So, for this, I made a zine, and it says, "What's a zine?" And I won't read you the entire thing, I'll kind of give you the rundown. This is something I personally really do like. I'll show you these pages. They originally were for science fiction in the 1930s. They moved to the punk scene in the 70s and 80s. He's mostly kind of in London and LA. He also says New York, I believe. But you kind of get the main idea with the punk with his big Liberty spikes, and you kind of see the tartan and the plaid. Mostly in London. That was a very big British movement for that stuff when it comes to that. And not saying that there wasn't a big punk scene here, but it moves on mostly to the riot girl scene in the 1990s, which was the feminist movement, kind of like how there was a feminist movement in the book. And it talks about inequalities and what they want to see changed and what they can do to change. And as you can see, these are just pictures I have. I typed up the words. I put them together for the most part. There are some of my own illustrations in there. You don't have to be super artistic to do these things, though. That's what I really like about them. It's a great outlet if you are artistic as well. But it kind of included magazines parts. Is why they're called zines and not zines. And Rebecca brought up the point, well, why don't we call magazines magazines? Just a fun little thing. You kind of think about it. You could write a zine about the etymology, if you correct me or if I'm wrong. And hopefully I'm not telling you the study of bugs, but the study of words, because they're very close. And just kind of you can do this very simply. There's even zine festivals now. They're mostly done for art, but you can make this about anything. Like I said, the study of a word. You can make it about a political movement that you care about personally, your own art, a book, just whatever you want. It's something you make and self-publish. And they don't have to be big. They don't have to do anything crazy about it. I simply just told you what a zine was in this. I did, however, make my own version of Moxie, like in the book. Now, in the book, it's talking about inequalities that's happening in the school. Well, I'm fortunate enough to not be in school or high school anymore. I know high school can be tough at times. So instead, I made my Moxie about women that had a lot of moxie and who I looked up to, because it talks about woman figures also in the book. And so I just kind of put my own. This is more for me than anything, but as you can see, I didn't type up as much stuff in this. That I cut out some articles about these people that I saw. It was mostly in a Times magazine, and you can kind of see I messed up there. And so these don't have to look super neat. They don't have to be, crazy. I want to show the Lizzo one. And they don't have to be perfect as well. And you can draw them, you can print them out. I'll cut them out from magazines. There's me messing up again, and I don't have the neatest of handwritings, I will say, but I just had some paper. You really don't need all the colors or anything. You can just do pen, paper, and this one's held by a rubber band. And it holds pretty well, but there's so many ways you can make zines. If you want to make a zine based off maybe a book you've read, maybe something that's happening to you at school, well, you can add poetry, you can add your own writings, maybe something you really liked, maybe you disliked. If you make your own zine, you can bring them to the library. We will display them, and we can just kind of talk about zines and what you want to see. But that's mostly about zines, and we'll talk about the book. I will come back to this. I liked a lot of the characters in it. You get, a small town girl, like maybe you relate to Vivian the most because we live in a small town. Maybe you feel that way. And they center around so many different things that I feel like relate back to Denton, and you kind of see around. But then you might feel like her character, she's not necessarily the main character. She kind of becomes a new best friend, Lucy Hernandez. This where she kind of comes in and she brings these new ideas and adds to the Moxie group and the zines and everything that you can do, because it's not just one girl making zines. They each kind of make their own and kind of bring back to each other. And so I think you can find someone you can relate to in this book, whether you come from a big town down here, you're to Denton, or maybe you've been here your whole life, and there's nothing wrong with Denton at all. But, being in high school in a small town, you can probably relate a lot to this book. So, like I said, it's not a perfect book. I would kind of give it a 6 out of 10, and just because some parts it kind of lags. But other than that, there are great messages in this book. So before we go, I would like to talk about April's books. April is National Poetry Month. Now, we may not talk about the book in the month of April, but I would like to read it for the month of April to give you enough time to read. So I have 3 books here, all which are free verse, which is non-rhyming poetry, is still rhythmic and poetic and very expressive. Free verse is very expressive, I would say. We have here Shout, which actually is a nonfiction memoir about the author and what she has dealt with along with sexual assault. That is something, if you do not like that type of books, we don't have to read it. It's just one of our options for this month. This here, let me just read a little section because it is so good. I've read this book personally. I really like this one. I would love to share it with you guys. That's why it's up here this week. 60 seconds, 7 floors, 3 rules, 1 gun. And just kind of start it off that way. And I will go ahead and show you, these books seem thick, but it is poetry, so they're not full-on pages of dialogue and things. There's some poems, some short, some long, and all 3 books are like this.
Now, did you say that we have the graphic novel of Long Way Down?
We do. It's one of our newer books. It adds to the pictures of the main character and him going down the elevator. And it's a very great concept, and the art's real done. And if you are more into graphic novels, because I know poetry can be very hit or miss with some people, but I do promise these books are really good. And they're just very different, I should say. And then here we have Clap When You Land, and it has won the 2020 Goodreads Award, the 2019 Carnegie Medal, and the Waterstones Book Prize. At least I know it doesn't have all the nice little medals like this one does in front, but we didn't get it by then. And this one, I will say, it's about 2 characters that don't know that they're sisters yet until their father has passed away. The father had a double life, and he would be flying from the Americas to the Dominican Republic, and he had 2 separate lives that they don't know until now. And so this book kind of expresses that in poetry between the sisters. And so that's our 3 books for next month. If you want to read one of these 3, so go ahead and comment below. If you know of another free verse book, or maybe you don't like free verse and you want to read a traditional poetry book, you're more than welcome to suggest it, and we can bring some here. we did get a lot of new ones, which we'll talk about next video, not next week, just when we talk about poetry for National Poetry Month. So I hope you guys enjoyed Moxie, or if you haven't read it yet, I hope you will read it and enjoy it. I hope you read it before you watch it, though, because I think to read it first would help you a lot. And I can't wait to see you guys next time, so goodbye.